Thank you for checking out the Reluctantly podcast. I'm Terry Evans. Whether you're on YouTube watching, or if you're on one of the audio streaming services, or you found it through reluctantlypodcast.com, makes no never mind to me. I'm just glad you're here. I appreciate you supporting the podcast, regardless of when you discovered it. The Reluctantly podcast started on October 24th, 2024. Mike Plume, David Gogo, and Clayton Bellamy from the Roadhammers, three very accomplished musicians and songwriters. So that was the kickoff. From there, we went to Brian Johnson from AC/DC, Haley Benedict, a local talent, St. Albert girl. 2025 has been an incredible year for Haley Benedict. From there, we went to Tom Cochran. After the Tom Cochran episode, I chatted with Nancy Jones, who was married to George Jones, one of the greatest voices in country music. From a lot of musical guests to kick off the podcast, we went to one of the top comics in North America today, Craig Gass. Kevin Lowe, always great to chat with Kevin, multiple Stanley Cup winner, legend in the NHL. Darby Mills, famous as the lead singer for the Headpins. And then we got close to Christmas with Riley's story from the year 2000 when Riley and I were wandering around a Toys R Us just before Christmas. As we get set, I guess, for 2026, I wanted to take a look back at the year 2025, and we will do that momentarily. I also wanted to thank my sponsors who stepped off the curb in a big way for me to support the podcast. Obviously, I don't have Joe Rogan numbers or Smartless numbers or anything like that. But when people do associate with the podcast partner and sponsor the podcast, they understand, and I certainly understand and appreciate that they are partnering with a brand, and that brand, like it or not, is me. So it means a lot. Homegirls.ca was my first sponsor. Shauna and Bonnie have been my real estate agents for multiple transactions in buying and selling homes. We also had Corey from Northern Alberta Heating, mixedbag.com, Stu at mixedbag, mixdbag.com, had a hand in sponsoring the Moving Day podcasts with Art New. ThompsonMortgages.com is a current sponsor and partner here on the podcast. They are my mortgage brokerage. Contact Mike or anybody at ThompsonMortgages.com. Tell him you heard about them on the Reluctantly podcast. We also have Concept.com, Concept, CONXEPPT.com. It's clothing and culture for men and for women. Dave, some fine couture, if you will. And I've got a snappy new suit that is just dying to be out there in public. So I'm looking forward to many events. And, of course, everybody behind the scenes at the Sound Off Network, soundoff.network, Matt, Aiden, and the entire team. Thank you so much for all of your help, because I needed a lot of it, and your support for 2025 and into 2026. We will be back with a look back at 2025 on the Reluctantly podcast.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by ThompsonMortgages.com. It costs you nothing to make a phone call to see if you can get a better rate, a better term, and better service for your mortgage. Also, Concept.com. Concept Clothing and Culture. CONXEPPT.com. Look your best.
Reluctantly.
2025 on the Reluctantly podcast started off actually on New Year's Eve of 2024. As we were saying goodbye to 2024, it was a Tuesday and it was a release day. So I thought, why not throw one out there? And it was a good podcast too. It was with David Weiser, who has been a musician who's worked with the likes of David Bowie. And I mean, he's worked on Broadway, done arrangements and keyboards, sampling and recording and that sort of thing. He was about to release a book called The Girl Who Wanted to Rock, all about empowering youth. And we had a really good discussion about some of the young people that I've encountered in the music industry over the course of my tenure here in Edmonton, young people who have grown into young adults and gone on to do great things in the music industry. So David Weiser, that was New Year's Eve. That was the kickoff to 2025. From there, we went to another great musician, Jeff Jones, Alien Bass Dog. The episode that was released on January 7th is Jeff Jones. Jonesy, who I've known for a very long time. He was one of the original members of Red Rider when Tom Cochran joined Red White Rider, because Tom Cochran was not even an original member of Red Rider. Jonesy was also in Ocean. You want to look that up. You'll recognize the song as soon as you hear it. If you want to Google Ocean and look up the Jeff Jones podcast from January 7th. After that, the January 11th bonus episode was released. This was with the comic J. Chris Newberg, who I've seen a number of times, had as a guest on the radio program. He's a Los Angeles comic and writer, sitcom writer, and he was majorly affected by the Los Angeles fires that were going on at that time. So we had a bonus, I believe it was a Friday episode with J. Chris Newberg that was out for that. After that, another comic who, I guess for lack of a better term, was reluctantly in the news more than he wanted to be. Paul Mercurio, who has been a guest at the comic strip in West Evanston Mall a number of times. Paul and I have become good friends. He was the January 14th episode of the Reluctantly podcast, and we talk about all of the things that we always talk about when we get together for lunch. Of course, he was the financial Wall Street lawyer before he left the firm and became a stand-up comedian. And he was also the warm-up act at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert for a number of years, multi-Emmy winner. So that's a fun episode with Paul Mercurio, The Late Show warm-up from January 14th. Then up next, we had the January 21st episode, Brian Baumler, who... we've become close, Brian and I. I guess it started with his multiple appearances on the radio show on K97, but also just before COVID hit, I went down to his Cerullamar boutique resort with my wife, and we were there the weekend after their grand opening. Of course, The Island of Brian was the big show on HGTV, and now, of course, the home network. Brian and Sarah were very gracious, Brian especially, and his son Q, taking me fishing, spear fishing and night fishing, caught a strawberry grouper, was even able to have it for dinner the next night with the cooking staff at Cerullamar. We had a terrific time in the Bahamas. And actually, there's two Brian Baumler episodes in 2025, the first of which you can look up January 21st of 2025. After that, another musician. I had a chance to chat with Dylan Farrell. Dylan spent a bunch of time in Edmonton. He's originally from back east in the Maritimes, has a strong family background in music, and decided that it was Nashville. He was hell-bent for Nashville, and he was off to Nashville to try and make it. He continues to do his thing down there, and the great thing is that his family is down there now as well. He started out on his own with his family staying behind in the Edmonton area, and now his family and him are all reunited, and he is burning it up with multiple gigs per day. Nashville is a different animal when it comes to music. You can go down there and you can have a morning gig at an airport, a lunchtime gig at an office building, an afternoon gig at another outdoor facility, and then an evening gig at a bar or a jam or something like that. It's pretty eye-opening, and was very interesting to talk to Dylan Farrell on the Hellbent for Nashville episode, which was January 28th. After that, February 4th, Scotty Bulldog Olson. If ever there was a fighter, it was Scotty Bulldog Olson. And I don't just mean a pugilist, like a boxer. I mean, Scotty's a fighter. Scotty's got some demons that he continues to fight every day. And I mentioned off the top that I had a chat with Darby Mills, who was famous for being the lead vocalist for the Headpins for so long. Well, Darby Mills has had a tough go of it over the years. with all of the history that goes along with the Headpins and the other members and whatnot, and how the Headpins are currently touring and how Darby is trying to still make her impact on music and survive. Darby Mills, if you would have asked me when I started this podcast who the two people are that I would have made cry on the podcast, I never would have guessed Darby Mills and Scotty Bulldog Olson, but those are the two. So the Darby Mills podcast from 2024, but the Scotty Bulldog Olson episode from February 4th, 2025. Jeremy Hotz. I first met Jeremy Hotz back in, I guess it would have been 1999, appearing at the comic strip on Bourbon Street in West Edmonton Mall. But I had the opportunity to have Jeremy Hotz on my Friday Night with Terry Evans TV show. And yes, I know we're going into 2026, and I do forget a lot that I had a TV show that ran an entire season, like 33 episodes every Friday night in the province of Alberta. And Jeremy Hotz was one of my terrific guests back then. And 25 years later, he was still a terrific guest. Jeremy is still going strong, performing all over North America. So that was the February 7th episode of the Reluctantly podcast. From there, back into the music vein, it was, I believe, a bonus episode. The Jeremy Hotz was a bonus episode. That's what it was. Regular Tuesday release was Nice Horse. This was Brandy and Katie from Nice Horse. They had just been nominated for a bunch of Country Music Alberta awards. I had met them previously at the Clayton Bellamy Foundation Golf and Gala, which took place out in Bonnyville. And we had a terrific time at the gala and a terrific time at the golf tournament the following day. Two terrific talents, salt of the earth, just so much fun to hang out with, and wonderful, wonderful people. They've gone on to perform and be recorded on television shows, and new music come out as the duo that they are, and other terrific things that have happened to them individually and together, singing national anthems for NFL games and NHL hockey games and all kinds of stuff. So it was pretty fun having the Nice Horse girls, Katie and Brandy, on the February 11th episode. Scoot forward again. Another special release was because Took had announced that they were going to be a big part of the Rockin' Thunder Fest. So we had Todd Kearns and Corey Churko of Took on the podcast as a special edition. Rockin' Thunder Fest was a hoot in the summer of 2024. Corey and Todd were amazing. Of course, with the other members of the band, they have made quite a name for themselves, being from basically small towns in Canada, and gone on to play with some of the biggest names in rock and roll, including Shania Twain, including Ozzy Osbourne and Slash. And I mean, the list goes on. If you are aware of Took, you probably know more than I do about Took, because Age of Electric, Todd, there's a lot of ways you could go, a lot of directions you could go if you start going down the Took rabbit hole. So it was, it was great to see them at Rockin' Thunder Fest, and put faces to each other and meet in person. They're such a talented band and such good guys. So the February 14th edition of the Reluctantly podcast, Todd and Corey from Took. After that, February 18th, a regular Tuesday episode was released, and that was Lee Aaron. Lee Aaron was my first real rock star. And I don't mean it that way, but that's the name of the episode. My first rock star was Lee Aaron. This was back in 83, I believe, when I first started at LA 107 down in Lethbridge. I was working at LA 107 in Lethbridge, and Lee Aaron came through like so many other acts did, like the Killer Dwarfs, like Pretty Rough, like Kick Axe. And I mean, there was dozens and dozens of acts that came through, a lot of heavy metal acts, and they came through and played Ed and Dave's place, the Alec Arms, and I would quite often host. And that was the first time I met Lee Aaron. First met her in her hotel room. She was up there with her band, and she had the Metal Queen poster, and she doodled a picture of me on the poster and autographed it for me. I had that for a very long time until my first wife decided that I didn't need to have that hanging in my garage or wherever it was hanging at the time. So that was good. The Lee Aaron episode, February 18th. February 20th, there was the plane incident where the plane landed upside down at Pearson Airport in Toronto. Remember that? So I had a special episode released with Lisa Beeson. It's called Upside Down Aircraft. Lisa is a good friend that I've known for over 30 years, and she's a former flight attendant for WestJet. So she had a lot of insight about aircraft safety, what flight attendants do for the passengers, and everything related to what happened that day at Pearson International Airport. That's the February 20th episode that was, I believe, a special release. After that, February 25th, chatted with Mike Plume again. Mike and I decided that we were going to have every 4 months a kind of a catch-up. Mike and I have been good friends for many, many years. Every time we talk to each other, it's we just pick up where we left off. And there had been too much time that had passed since we had chatted, so we got together on the February 25th episode, which was called Saw/Naked. He tells the story about Slash dropping his pants in a restaurant in Los Angeles well, you have to check out the episode for yourself. It's the February 25th episode, Mike Plume Saw/Naked.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by ThompsonMortgages.com. Did you know that 60% of Canadian mortgages come up for renewal in 2025 and 2026? Is yours one of them? This is a great reason why you should reach out to ThompsonMortgages.com. Don't just DocuSign that email that comes from your current lender. Reach out to ThompsonMortgages.com. Ask Mike or any one of the team members if you should be on a fixed rate, a variable rate. What kind of terms should you be looking at? These are great questions for anyone at ThompsonMortgages.com. And if you do reach out, please let them know that you heard about this on the Reluctantly podcast. Over the years, I've had the good fortune to meet many of the Edmonton Oilers and become friends with them. And one of those characters is Scott Thornton, third overall pick the year of his draft. And my old bungee jumping pal, Scott Thornton. I remember bungee jumping with him in World Water Park in West Edmonton Mall. He had close to a 2-decade career in the NHL. Shared all kinds of stories about back in the day with the Oilers and throughout the other teams that he played for. And we also talked about some new safety initiatives that he's doing with hockey and hockey helmets in particular. So that's a good episode, March 4th, 2025. A week later, my first introduction to Mel Schmiller Jr., Dark Side of the Grill, if you want to look him up on YouTube or Facebook. Mel Schmiller Jr. is a character. You want to talk about weirdos, wackos, and nut bars? This is a guy who was welding up in Fort McMurray, and he would cook barbecue every month for his staff. Some kids started posting pictures on Instagram of the stuff that he was cooking, and then all of a sudden it turned into it turned into his livelihood, and then it turned into his career. He travels around the world doing live fire events and cooking. I did 2 episodes with Mel in 2025. The one in March, as we learned all about him, and then later that year when they hosted the Fire in the Valley at the Rainbow Valley Park near Snow Valley in Edmonton. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. On March 15th, it was the Players Moving Day podcast with Art New, head pro at Trestle Creek Golf Course, brought to you by Mixed Bag Golf, MIXDBAG, mixedbag.com. That was the first of a number of Moving Day podcasts where inside each one, had a little code word, gave you an opportunity to listen to the podcast, get the code word that would give you a spiff, 2 for 1, free carts, whatever the case, at Trestle Creek. So that actually worked out really good. Lots of people tuned in for the Moving Day podcast to get the deal on golf at Trestle Creek. After that, back to comedians. My favorite Greek, Angelo Saroukas, was coming through town, and actually he was doing a whole national tour all through Canada, and he's always so much fun to talk to. Angelo's been in a number of movies with some very high-profile A-list actors, so check out that podcast from March 18th. Talk to Angelo Saroukas. After that, Paul Perrier. He is a pretty remarkable dude. Talks about his journey of riding across Canada at the age of 64, motivated by the desire to raise awareness for mental health and addiction. He also has a Cracked, Not Broken documentary that was an award winner. He's an interesting cat, man. You want to check out the episode with Paul Perrier that was released, I believe, on March 25th. Over the course of 2025, because of my association with the Alberta Spirits and Cocktail Festival, I had an opportunity to record a number of Distillery Discovery podcasts. The first one that was released was March 28th, featuring Black Diamond Distillery from right here in St. Albert, Alberta. So that was a lot of fun, learning all I could about distilling, and it happened over the course of a number of podcasts. David Skade from Black Diamond Distillery was my guest on the March 28th episode. April 1st, Martin Kerr, Arenas or Busk. Yes, Martin Kerr is an interesting cat, and he did things an interesting way to garner a following, get popular, and fill arenas and venues. He's a terrific listen and a terrific artist based out of Edmonton, originally from overseas. And he has made a name for himself with, well, let's just call it some politically motivated songs and parodies on top of his original music. That was April 1st, the Martin Kerr. Another distillery discovery with True Wild Distilling. This was with the Alberta Craft Distillery Association president, Bryce Parsons, and he also runs True Wild Distilling down in Calgary. He was an interesting guy and a veritable wealth of knowledge when it came to the provincial government and how it handles everything to do with craft distillers. That was on April 4th. Lars Kallio. Lars is a local Edmonton area stand-up comic who travels the world and tells his jokes and entertains people, and came up with the idea of doing backyard comedy shows during COVID when everybody had to do the social distancing. If you look up Lars Kallio on social media, you'll also see that he has an amazing amount of kilometers amassed on his car, and that is a big part of what Lars Kallio and what we talked about on the April 8th episode. After that, it was more distillery discovery. I first met Michelle Middleton at the St. Albert Farmers Market. She was under a tent talking about Middleton's Bitters, which was a part of the Alberta Spirits and Cocktail Festival. She's terrific, full of energy and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to bitters, the things that you add to cocktails, and just knowing more and more about the cocktail culture is pretty cool. Another Moving Day podcast came up on April 12th ahead of the Masters. Talked with Art New. Art and the partnership with Mixed Bag Golf, mixedbag.com was really terrific, and had lots of people listening to that. The April 15th episode was Brian Rode, who is vice president of Marmot Basin and basically knower and seer of everything when it comes to Jasper National Park and the town of Jasper. Of course, the previous year we had the fires in Jasper, devastated the town, 30% destroyed, but it was time to go back, and we talked about that, a return to Jasper, and they're rebuilding and continue to do an amazing job with everything Jasper related. So that was the April 15th episode. April 18th was Lone Pine Distilling on the Distillery Discovery. April 22nd, Curtis Stock. If you ever have a chance to sit down with Curtis Stock after 18 holes of golf in a clubhouse somewhere, probably at the ranch, I strongly recommend that you take the opportunity to listen to the stories that he has about sports. He is, we talked about his book on horse racing and the family that's so prevalent in horse racing. The writer of Secretariat. He was just a tremendous storyteller with all kinds of stuff that just kept me wanting to talk to him longer. He was a longtime writer for the Edmonton Journal. Then April 29th was the Steele and Steinke podcast episode. I said hello to them and basically 14 minutes later asked my first question. I didn't say a word hardly for the first 14 minutes of that podcast because Gordon and Linda just blah, 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 blah. They just started going and there was no stopping. There was absolutely no stopping Gord Steinke and Linda Steele on the April 29th episode. After that, I had an opportunity to talk with Brian Vollmer of Helix to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Helix. Brian Vollmer, and of course, in late 2025, Brian Vollmer and Helix put out brand new material. So you're going to be hearing more and more of that as 2026, as we get into 2026. I think back to some of the people that I had as guests on the podcast, and I kind of count my lucky stars because, going from, people like Brian Vollmer to Greg Keeler of Blue Rodeo. They were celebrating 40 years of Blue Rodeo. And I ended up talking with Greg. I almost was going to cut it into two parts because we talked at such depth about everything from his health issues to how much he wanted to continue playing. And then, of course, the history of Blue Rodeo itself. It was a great conversation. And having known Greg for as long as I have, it was great to catch up with him. And that was the May 6th episode. After that, May 13th, TJ Miller off his Christmas party, the Deadpool movies, stand-up comedy, specials, Silicon Valley, the TV show. TJ Miller is always a hoot. Anytime you get a chance to talk to TJ or go and see him live, I recommend you do so. On May 15th, we had another Moving Day podcast start new as we talked about everything to do with the PGA Championship. Then right after that, I'll tell you, going from TJ Miller to Andrew Santino was a bit of a coup. Andrew Santino was going to be performing at the River Cree Resort and Casino. And, of course, Andrew Santino from Ricky Stenicki. He was in that movie, the Bad Friends podcast, Mixology, his stand-up. He's been on dozens of podcasts with Bobby Lee and everything. I mean, Andrew's been a good friend for a number of years, too. First met him when he was first headlining at the comic strip. Rick and Tammy gave Andrew an opportunity to do his first headlining shot at the comic strip on Bourbon Street in West Edmonton Mall. Actually, Andrew Santino is one of the most popular, along with Scotty Bulldog Olson. Scotty Bulldog Olson and Andrew Santino, two of the most watched of the Reluctantly podcasts on YouTube. One of the most downloaded episodes of the Reluctantly podcast. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to watch it because it's pretty easy on the eyes, is thebits.ca. May 27th, I had an opportunity to host Quinn Phillips, Paulina Denholm, and Claire Devaney as they discussed their podcast, The Bits. It focuses on sports from a female perspective. And we talked about everything to do with the tail end of the Oilers season. The playoffs were just wrapping up or, coming to a close. I guess we would have been right in the playoffs because it was May 27th episode. But that is one of the most downloaded and most listened to on all of the streaming services, The Bits podcast from May 27th. From there, it was Tom Cochran Part 2. The June 3rd podcast featured another chat with Tom Cochran who, like I said earlier in the show, Tom and I have been friends for a very, very long time. They were about to announce the September long weekend, or was it Canada Day? I can't remember. And he was going to be coming to town and playing Ice District with Burton Cummings in his band. And there was something that postponed the original date, and that's right. Then they ended up coming on the September long weekend. I was there to host all of the fun and visit with Tom again. So part deux, that is the June 3rd podcast with Tom Cochran. After the Tom Cochran podcast, had a great opportunity to talk with Max Bro about the Accessible Canada Act. He's an author, disability advocate, discusses his journey and the importance of the Accessible Canada Act, and emphasizes the need for awareness about the rights of individuals with disabilities and the collective responsibility to create an inclusive society. A very interesting podcast. Max, an interesting dude. That was the podcast that came out on June 10th. After that, another Moving Day podcast on June 14th, Art New. That was a Saturday morning. We talked about everything the U.S. Open. Another Rig Hand Distillery Discovery podcast was on June 17th. That was with Jamie Stewart from Rig Hand Distillery. And then I got an opportunity to chat on the June 24th episode with Daryl Dwarf. Daryl Miller. Daryl has been the drummer for the Killer Dwarfs for 1,000 years, and he's a great guy. He is a rock and roll pirate, not a rock and roll pilot, and it's dwarfs, not dwarves. Daryl Dwarf on the June 24th episode was terrific. After that, July 1st, we celebrated Canada Day by talking about motorcycle safety with Leanne Langlois, #ThinkBike. She runs the Alberta Motorcycle Safety Society, and she is a wealth of knowledge about motorcycle safety. She's also got an incredible personal story about her racing at the Bonnyville Salt Flats as well. Another distillery discovery with Bridgeland Distillery. Antonio was chatting with us, another one that we recorded at the Alberta Spirits and Cocktail Festival. Then a midsummer date with Kevin Carius. Kevin Carius, formerly of Global Television, now of Sports 1440. And he does a segment on my radio show every morning called Sports Go Sports. Kevin and I have known each other for the better part of 30 years. And he's got some stories to tell from back in the days when he was doing color commentary with Rod Phillips for radio for some of the Oilers games back in the heyday. Other sport stories. Kevin Carius is always fun to hang with and always fun to chat with when it comes to sports. He's a local legend and, of course, huge in the community with his Easter Seals golf tournament that he hosts every year.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by Concept Clothing and Culture. CONXEPPT.com. Handcrafted suits, custom tuxedos, and tailored essentials. Suits starting at $1,188. Made to measure right here in downtown Edmonton. Concept. CONXEPPT.com. If you reach out to Dave or anyone at Concept.com, please let them know that you heard about them on the Reluctantly podcast. We are looking back at 2025 on the Reluctantly podcast, and the July 19th episode was another moving day, the Open Championship with Art New from Trestle Creek with mixedbag.com. I had fun doing the golf podcasts, and Art got right into it. I know they're dated and they were happening on the Saturdays of the majors and, of course, the Players' Championship and the Ryder Cup, but we had fun. And Art had fun. He really embraced it. He was dressing up in rain gear and sousters and all kinds of stuff. Art's quite the character. You should go out and see him at Trestle Creek when the golf season starts up again in 2026. After that, like I said earlier, I've been very fortunate to become friends with many Edmonton Oiler legends over the years. One of those is Bill Ranford, who I share a birthday with. Not the same year, but the same date. And it was great to talk with Bill Ranford and everything that Bill went through as an Edmonton Oiler and as part of the Los Angeles Kings franchise as the goalie coach, and where he sits currently with his family and his career. Bill Ranford is the podcast from July 22nd. After that, July 29th, Wayne Alchin, a local favorite, local musician, guitarist extraordinaire, a prodigy. I met him when he was in his early teens, when he was playing at the Sidetrack Cafe. He and his father, Chris, of course, met his mom, Liz. Chris and Liz are no longer with us, but the Wayne Alchin Rock and Roll Hard episode from July 29th is one of my favorites. After that, another Oilers legend, Laddie Smead. Oilers greater than the Flames. Yes, he said it. He prefers the Oilers to the Flames, even though he played for both. The August 5th episode is Ladislav Smead. Danny Hooper was next. August 12th, I had an opportunity to interview Danny Hooper, who was celebrating 50 years in entertainment. He tells the stories going back to Danny Hooper's stockyard, trying to struggle as a country music artist and getting into radio and becoming one of the most sought-after auctioneers in North America, raising countless millions of dollars for charity. That was the August 12th episode. August 19th, it was Distillery Discovery time again with Silver Devil Spirits, the family-owned distillery in southern Alberta. The craft distillery culture in this province is off the hook. It is so interesting, too. So if you want to learn more about spirits and distilleries in Alberta, make sure you check out the Distillery Discovery episodes, one August 19th with Silver Devil Spirits. After that, a metal freak. That's one of the things that we have in common. Jim Florentine was in town to do some stand-up comedy at the comic strip, and it was great to chat with Jim. I first became aware of Jim Florentine on Sirius XM. I believe he was doing some stuff with Stern, and he's just, the ins that he had hosting his metal show into the music industry will knock your socks off. And the story that he has about being at Ozzy's last show is terrific. You want to catch that. The August 26th episode with Jim Florentine. From there, another boxer. Now, I made Scotty Bulldog Olsen cry, but I did not make Jelena Mrnjavec cry. Jelena Mrnjavec is a sweetheart, and she is so inspiring, and she's still kicking ass and taking names. Jelena Mrnjavec episode from September 2nd was awesome. She is one of my favorites. Oh, look at that. What's Shakin'? The Mike Plume, third episode with September 9th as the date of release. It was great to chat with Mike. We catch up every 3 or 4 months, like I said. And that was also the episode where we found out the great news about his daughter Ruby, who had just signed a publishing deal. News hadn't quite come out just yet. It was right around that time, though. Mike Plume, Mike and Jenny's daughter, Ruby, is having terrific success with her music as she matures and came out of the Berklee College of Music in Boston. After that, Drew Baim. I've known Drew since he was a young comic making his way through competitions and trying to do features and that sort of thing at the comic strip and traipsing around Alberta, doing small venues and that sort of thing. Drew then went out to Ontario, ended up getting into radio, hosted a radio program, got into sales. And then I don't know what happened. You catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, we saw it leading up to Christmas. Machine Gun Kelly, MGK on stage, dying laughing and sharing his thoughts on what if blank had an Alberta accent. Well, that's Drew Baim. And if you look up drewbaim.com or Drew Baim on social media, just search up what if Machine Gun Kelly had an Alberta accent, and that'll be a good start. You can go down that rabbit hole forever. And Drew has really ridden that lightning bolt into viral sensation. So it's great stuff. I love watching Drew develop as a comic. It's been super fun. Now, September 23rd, we got ready for Smoke in the Valley. This is the open fire cooking competition that took place down at Rainbow Valley Park at Snow Valley here in Edmonton. Talked with Mel Schmiller Jr. again to talk about the Smoke in the Valley Barbecue Festival, the first of its kind in Canada. They're looking forward to doing it again in 2026. It was a lot of fun, actually, to go down there and be a part of that. Found out about some of Mel's travels in 2025 on that episode, cooking for royalty and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's remarkable what he has done, just cooking meat. After that, we had another Moving Day special with the Ryder Cup with Art New from Trestle Creek. Again, we had fun with that because the Ryder Cup was taking place. And then the September 30th episode, Carrie Dahl and Daryl McIntyre. Good friends with those two for a very long period of time. Had a chance to see Daryl over the summer. Been meeting up with him through mutual friends out at Shoe Swap, and we know he's been trying to get me to retire for the longest time. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but Daryl and Carrie were terrific on the news desk on CTV Edmonton, and we find out that Daryl actually hated parades. That's the episode from September 30th, 2025. The October 3rd episode had a chance to talk to my niece, Brady Campbell, as she does terrific work for Camp for a Cause. Camp for a Cause to help out people that are suffering with mental illness. After that, the October 7th episode, The Bits 2.0, with the launch of the 2025-2026 NHL season and other sport-related bits. That again was Claire, Quinn, and Paulina. And that is another highly listened to, highly downloaded, and highly streamed podcast. So the girls are great, and they have a really great knowledge of sport. No matter what the sport is, we talk a lot about it, but their specialties are hockey and probably NFL football, if I had to guess. After that, another chat with Brian Baumler on October 14th. We were talking about the new show that he had on Home Network as they talked about not only things at Sur-la-Mar, but also their homestead down in Florida, but also their other resort that they opened up in the Florida Keys. So, and of course, he was coming to Edmonton for all of the things that go with the renovation show and that. So it was great to chat with Brian twice in 2025. Chats with Brian Baumler, and that episode is also highly downloaded and listened to. So enjoy that one, October 14th. A special release October 17th because Sophie B. Hawkins, remember that song, Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover? Sophie B. Hawkins was coming to the Edmonton area and touring across Canada for that matter. She had a number of shows booked throughout Western Canada and got an opportunity. There was no video on that. She didn't want to do video, so we just did an audio podcast. Sophie B. Hawkins, the October 17th episode. And then after that, on October 21st, one of my favorite guys in the local comedy scene, Donovan Workin. We talked about our matching tattoos. We both have wrong arm. We both have Rolling Stones tattoos with the tongue and the dice and everything. And that matches, of course, the one that my son has. My son and I got ours in Vegas. Donovan Workin. Nobody's seen the Rolling Stones more than Donovan Workin, with the possible exception of Charlie Watts, I guess. But Donovan's got a great story about meeting Charlie Watts and drinking their rider and that. So that was the October 21st episode. And that pretty much marked the first year of the Reluctantly podcast. And then, I changed my logo, or at least changed the artwork a little bit for the episode with Mark Connolly. Mark Connolly, CBC janitor, retires. I worked with Mark at K97 back in the day, back in the late 80s. And he, of course, went on to do so much covering the Olympics, winter, summer, both. I mean, just remarkable sports knowledge, and congratulations to Mark on his career and his retirement. He was a kid. His father was a custodian, and then he would help out his dad. He used to be the janitor at CBC, so Mark would go and clean up with his dad in the CBC building, and Mark eventually retired from the CBC. So that's why it's called CBC Janitor Retires, the October 28th episode. November 4th, I think, is one of the most important episodes that I did. And it's with Julie Matthews. I used to call Julie Matthews the people shooter when she was working for Global Television. Of course, she was the troubleshooter, and she helped people who didn't seem to get help from any other source. They would end up going to Julie, and she would find, she talked about, people who had lost photo albums or cameras or something a little more major. There'd be people being scammed by businesses and, end up doing terrific work as a fraud fighter and a scam fighter. She turned that into a career after being in broadcasting on Global News, turned that into a career as a peace officer in the fraud division there, and did terrific work before finally venturing out onto her own and helping people who are subjected to ne'er-do-wells, whether it be online or in person. And she does seminars and symposiums and goes and talks to people. And it's remarkable to find out that it's not just old people who are victims of scams and fraud, but now so many young people, Gen Z, are being victims of fraud. So, super important episode, I think, if you checked it out, the November 4th episode with Julie Matthews. After that, November 10th, for Remembrance Day, the Purvises. We talked about No Stone Left Alone and how important it is to remember anyone who has ever worn our flag and fought for our country, no matter what the conflict, and how important it is to make sure that people remember it as we progress here from 2025 into 2026. The No Stone Left Alone organization does amazing work, and it's starting to become something that is worldwide, not just in the Edmonton area or provincially here in Alberta. After that, Colin Mockery. The November 18th episode, Colin Mockery, who I first met at the Improv on Melrose in Los Angeles. I don't even remember what year it was. It would have been 1989, 90, somewhere in there. We had gone there to watch some live stand-up comedy. Came out. There was Adam Sandler, Colin Mockery, and Kevin Nealon, and a bunch of other guys, and talked to Colin in the parking lot, and he actually hailed me a cab. So it was great to see Colin again, catch up with him, and talk about his show with Brad Sherwood across Western Canada and Kitchener, Central Canada, I suppose. Of course, you will remember Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? After that, the November 25th episode was all about the movie Contamination and Brimstone Pictures, Preston Neal, S. Raj Kumar, and we had a great conversation about the movie Contamination, making movies in the Edmonton area and Alberta, more regionally, I suppose. It was awesome. The movie was terrific, too. Great little indie film if you want to catch that. My December 2nd episode was with Fish Grakowski. If you ever want to know anything culturally about the city of Edmonton, you want to sit down and talk and have a beer with Fish Grakowski, longtime writer for the Edmonton Journal, Edmonton Sun, cartoonist, musician. I mean, he's got everything, and he's got stories about Edmonton that will knock your socks off. The December 9th episode was my old friend Rick Bronson, the comic strip in West Edmonton Mall, named for him. Also his full line of comedy clubs down in the United States. Rick and I have known each other also for some 30 years, and it was great to talk with Rick. If you ever do get in a conversation with Rick Bronson, it is kind of like herding kittens. Not hurting, herding, Herding, herding kittens. The guy, I mean, he sees something shiny and away he goes. After that, I had an opportunity to talk for the December 16th episode, Jake Latimer, who was on Survivor 49. He was the dude from Canada who got bit by a snake. And that was unfortunately the end of the road for Rick Latimer on Survivor 49. He is originally from Regina, lived in Australia. He actually lived in Australia trying to play semi-pro hockey down there. Ended up becoming an exotic dancer down in Australia, and then brought his wife to be back to Regina, and then they have now settled in St. Albert near Edmonton. Jake Latimer is an interesting cat, and A lot of times you think a show like Survivor can turn someone into a bit of a publicity hound and that sort of thing. But it's not the case with Jake. He's a guy that's been doing good things for a lot of people long before Survivor came along for him. He works a great deal with Special Olympics, found him to be a very interesting cat. And it was a great chat. That was the December 16th episode. After that, it was a re-release of Riley's Story, the episode that has become a Christmas tradition, and it is now 25 years in the running. My son is 28. It was a kind of a special release, even though it was a re-release this year of Riley's Story. And the reason for that is because Riley, my son, he's 28 now, and this was his first Christmas away from home. He left early in December, the 2nd or 3rd, and he spent the month of December touring India as the drummer for A.P. Dillon. He is supposed to be coming home just before New Year's. And that is a look back at 2025 on the Reluctantly podcast. Thank you so much for your support. It truly means a lot to me. I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into when I started this podcast, but it has gotten to the point now, as you can tell, with all of the people that I've talked to. I really enjoy it. The long form conversational aspect of a podcast is super fun. Some of them are very short, 10, 12 minutes. Others, an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half. All of them have been super interesting for me. I hope that they have been interesting for you. From the Reluctantly podcast, others have come up. You can check out the Wealth Roundup. It's a podcast about investment insight. My BMO Nesbitt Burns guy. You can find that at patrickmleonard.com. Also, the Wealth Roundup on YouTube. The other one that is now out is Zone 1 Podcast. The Zone 1 Podcast with Jackie Ray Greening, who recently retired from CFCW, and Rick McSwain from Network Travel. And that is a lot of fun. Looking forward to bringing those to you every Friday. The Wealth Roundup comes out when it is approved by BMO Nesbitt Burns. You can look that up at patrickmleonard.com. By the way, if you have not yet started your investment journey, do reach out to Patrick Leonard, who has been doing a great job for me through BMO Nesbitt Burns, the Leonard Wealth Advisory Group. And of course, you want to do some travel. You can't go wrong with networktravel.ca. I'm Terry Evans. Thank you again for your support of the Reluctantly podcast. It's on YouTube. It's at reluctantlypodcast.com and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome to 2026.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by ThompsonMortgages.com. It costs you nothing to make a phone call to see if you can get a better rate, a better term, and better service for your mortgage. Also, Concept.com. Concept Clothing and Culture. CONXEPPT.com. Look your best.
Reluctantly.